Year, New You Nutrition Workshop Series. Get ready to experience a fun, interactive, and educational session with a certified nutritionist. In this session, you will discover ways to make healthier choices as you set your personal goals to start the new year off right. Be sure to share what you learned during this session with a friend or family member.
Again, welcome and thank you for joining us for our January New Year, New You series. My name is Savannah Nielsen, and I am a Health and Wellness Assistant with the Department of Parks and Recreation. Before we begin, let's go over a few housekeeping items. You should see a microphone icon at the bottom of your screen like you see here on the screen. You will need to click this icon to mute yourself. We would ask that you remain muted to limit any distractions during the program. Next, I want to draw your attention to the camera icon. You use this to turn your camera off and on. Please be mindful that when your camera is on, all participants joining us this evening will be able to see your screen. You have the options to keep your camera on or turn it off, but remember we want to minimize distractions throughout the program and keep the focus on the presentation being provided. Next, I would like to show you how to pin a participant. To do this, you will need to click on the Show Participants icon. In the Participants column, select the individual you want to view on your screen. Then click or tap the three dots icon to reveal a menu. From the drop-down menu, select Pin for Me. The pinned participant becomes a focus in your view and only your view, regardless of the speaker. To unpin, repeat these 3 steps and select Unpin. Repeat the same process to pin an additional participant. Please note if you're in a web browser, the PowerPoint presentation will be in a smaller window at the top or bottom of your screen. Next, I would like to draw your attention to another Teams feature. You can also turn on live closed captions during the meeting. To do this, you will need to click on the 3 dots for more options. Then you can scroll down and find the option that says Turn on Live Captions. Then you will start to see captions at the bottom of your screen. You may choose to turn this feature on if needed. The last icon I want to tell you about is the chat icon. This will allow you to ask questions throughout the program. To type a question, you will just click on the chat icon, like the one you see here on this screen, to bring up the chat box, and it should take you to what you see on the next slide. Once you see the chat box as you see on this screen, there will be a space for you to type your question in. Hit enter and we will see your question on the screen. Please ask your questions throughout the program and there will be time at the end to answer your questions. We're looking forward to a great discussion. Also, before we get started, we recommend grabbing a pen and paper for you to take notes throughout the session. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our trained professional for the evening. Alana Gore is a registered dietitian and licensed dietitian nutritionist with a certificate of training in adult and pediatric weight management. She received her BA in anthropology, BS in biology, and Master of Public Health Nutrition from University of North Carolina. She worked as a clinical dietitian for 5 years and currently serves the DMV community as a nutrition specialist for Giant Food. She believes nutrition is about balance, not perfection. Alana hopes to inspire others to make every eating experience an adventure and making healthful choices and trying something new. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. I am going to jump right in. I know we're on week 3, and so the only thing I wanted to point out is remember that we wrote down some goals in week 1. So if you have those handy, have those out because we just want to remind ourselves as often as we can about those goals and the things that we need. And so I am going to share my screen and we will get started. So this always takes me, there we go. All right. And while that's coming up, remember that today we're going to talk about meal planning and how to fit it in a budget. So if some of you guys had healthy eating goals or things about how to purchase healthier, we did our food store tour. So now you may know how to go around in the store. But today we're going to talk a little bit about implementing that. So purchasing and how to meal plan while on a budget. So now that we're here, I'll jump right into, we're going to maximize our budget today. We're going to think about that, especially for at Giant. And we are going to do some tips for eating and shopping. All right. So did you guys know that Americans throw away about a pound of food a day? So if you did not know that, you have learned that today, but that is about 225 to 290 pounds per year. That's $640 worth of food. So when this all goes in the trash, think about all the resources that it took to produce this food, transport this food, and all of that goes to the waste, goes into the trash. And so as a consumer, when we're thinking about this, we want to be conscious about how we purchase food, how we take it off the shelves and bring it home and our use of it, because we don't want to contribute excessively to that waste. So when we talk about maximizing your budget, we're also talking about money saving habits through making sure that you're properly storing food when you purchase it. All right. So we want to plan meals so that they are like on our tighter budget, but we also want to reduce food waste. All right. So meal planning on a budget is not just about the food in the budget, but it is about waste as well. So, our first tip, and hopefully you have your pen and paper, because if you were thinking about buying things that to help save money, the first thing you're going to have to remember is plan meals and snacks, which means you will always need a pen and paper. So, I will say this just like I'd say, everyone, this is a time consuming portion. This is not necessarily a short step, but this is a very pivotal, important step in saving money, as well as saving in food waste and everything. So you have to evaluate your whole life, your kitchen. You have to evaluate your convenience factors. Like, are you a person that's always on the go? So we want to plan our meals and snacks. So how do we do that? How do you plan it effectively? Well, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to ask yourself, what do I make? So, in a week, when we're planning these meals, what do you want to make? So, maybe your family has suggestions for you. Maybe kids have a favorite meal, or someone has a craving for something or a taste for something, or they're like, you know what, we haven't had, beef stroganoff in a while. So, ask for suggestions. Review cookbooks if you have them, or the way we say it now is cooking websites and apps. If you're just thinking about what do you want to make this week, you need to kind of think about it. And so sometimes we need inspiration. I can't come up with it every week. So look for inspiration, but ask yourself, what is it that you want to make? What are you going to make? And then when you think about what you're going to make, so let's say you want to plan out Monday through Friday. You can just kind of write down your suggestions, look at some recipes. You need to think about, what do you already have? So we're going to do a home inventory. Now, the more thorough the home inventory the first time, the better it is for the weekly home inventory. But you want to check your refrigerator, you want to check your freezer, and you also want to check your pantry. So you're checking for things that you need for some of the suggestions you may have gotten from your family, or some of the recipes that you wrote down. But you also want to think about, what do you need? So what are some staples that you're going to need for this? So if you know you want to have, beef stroganoff one day and hamburgers another day, then some of those same ingredients are in there. We know we're going to need some beef in the refrigerator, whether it's ground, whether it's frozen. So look for different things when you're doing that. And then you're also going to think about the grocery store inventory. So we went over in our food store tour, what's on sale? What are some coupons? So if you get the flyer that comes to your home, maybe that'll help inspire you on what to make because it's on sale. You never really know. But when you're thinking about all of these things, you have to kind of plan for purchasing, for already having it, also for storage. So if you have a small refrigerator, or you just don't have a lot of space in the refrigerator this week because maybe you have a lot of leftovers from the week before, you want to plan your storage. So maybe you don't go and buy everything that needs to be refrigerated, since you already have so much stuff in the refrigerator. So think about all these things. What are you going to make? What do you already have? And then what are some things that the grocery store will have on sale, or things that are needed? So you also want to think about, when you're storing them, where are you going to put them when they come home? So some fruits like pineapples, melons, bananas, those need to be room temperature until you cut or cook them. So they won't take up space. So maybe they're a good choice this time. So just think about all those different things. Think about where they need to go, where you're going to store them as you're planning these meals. You're also going to grab your tools, right? So you've planned, you've thought about, like, I think I might want to make this. So you need to look up some of those recipes, see some of the things that you don't have. You need to put it on a calendar. So if you're writing it down, if it's a weekly one, Monday through Friday, you want to say Monday for dinner, this, Tuesday for lunch, this. You want to write these things down for when you're going to make the meal. And also, you can even plan out if you need to eat out that day. I know that sounds weird, but that's how we do our budgeting, right? If you know you have a dinner to meet someone for, or celebratory dinner for your friends on a Wednesday, you want to write that into your budget then. Plan your days. What's scheduled? Do you have time to make it that day? So again, this is a kind of thorough process. It takes a little while, but these are the questions that you're going to ask. And the more often you do this, the easier these questions get to ask yourself and answer. So you're like, I already know what's in the pantry. I check the pantry every Sunday or every Friday. Same thing for the freezer. Oh wow, the freezer's empty. I finally used a lot of those things that are in there. So these will become easier and easier to answer the more you get into it. But yes, again, takes a lot of time and effort. When you pick your recipes, you want to use what you already have. And then you may want to use some similar ingredients. And then you can always ask yourself, can you double it? So, can you double something on it? So, when we're talking about this, we're talking about eating healthy on a budget. So, can you double the vegetables in that recipe? Something like that. Or similar ingredients. Let's say you want a stir fry, but it's made with chicken, but you're vegetarian. You can always sub it with a firm tofu if that's something that interests you. And let's say a recipe calls for, let's say chicken thighs, for example. Well, if you already have chicken breasts, maybe you can use that in your recipe instead. So you're planning all of this based on what you have and what you need to purchase. All right. So you want to make it as easy for yourself as possible. And the more things that you use, because you already have them in the pantry, in the freezer, in the fridge, the more money you're saving. And the healthier your kitchen is, you're reducing food waste, as well as you can make these recipes and choose these recipes that are healthy choices. When you are planning your meals, you want to make sure that you're balancing it. So we talk about my plate all the time, and that's because this is very important. We want to remember that when we're meal planning and we make recipes, that we have a protein, that we have produce in it, and that we have high fiber carbohydrates. So I think about this with recipes because I am a big fan of mixing different food groups. So I love a casserole or again a stir fry or a bowl. I will kill a rice, bean, corn and bowls. So these are things that are combined. So when you think about my plate, it's like, "Oh, am I getting half a plate produce if this is all combined when I eat it?" So check your meals for balance when you're making them and when you're making the recipe, especially if you're the cook. So did you put veggies in here? Did you double the veggies or can you? Or do you need to add a few veggies on your plate after you make it? So that we're looking at the my plate method as a good gauge of our portion sizes. So for everyone that's eating, as well as for our health. All right. So balance it out. You're always thinking about my plate. And I tell people a lot, if you notice that you have a recipe or you've planned out a meal and it's not enough of something on there, don't always think to take away extra. Just add more veggies, add more fruit if you need to. So if you know, wow, like I've got a lot of grains on here. If they're high fiber grains, maybe your plate will have a little bit more grains on it. But if you add more veggies, you can make it a lot better as well. So balance. Remember, it's not about taking it away. It's about adding the things that you need, the nutrients that you're going to get from this. We're aiming for fiber from those carbohydrates and those grains. We're aiming for minerals and vitamins from our produce and protein from our protein sources such as fish, meat, nuts, eggs, and vegan options such as tofu and soy products. So that's our first tip. We're going to plan those meals and snacks. It's going to take us a while, but again, I can't iterate to you enough. Once you get in the habit of doing this, it becomes so much easier and it saves you so much money on the back end. So if you don't take away anything else from here, remember, plan out your meals and snacks, especially when your budget is the tightest. All right. So, our second tip is plan to reduce food waste. So, we talked about this a little bit in the beginning, and you want to make sure that you're storing things where they go so that they don't get like wasted early. They don't grow mold or do things too early before you can use them. So, like I said before, you have like bananas, pineapples, melons, tomatoes, squash, and corn. They are actually all stored at room temperature. And sometimes this surprises people. After you cut these items, you do need to store them in something that's cool, like a cooler or a refrigerator. But before you cut them, they actually go at room temperature. Putting them in the fridge too early or next to something else could actually cause them to go bad faster. So, a good rule of thumb is to store things as you bought them. So, if you think about where you buy corn most of the time, or squash, especially tomatoes, you buy them from the produce section, but they're not in the mist section. They're not in the cool corners, or if you say it like that, like where the mist comes down. I can't think of that, like the cooler area. They're actually in the middle and they tend to be in bins. If you think about pineapples, especially, it has that outside. So that goes room temperature until you cut it. Um, some cool pantry items would be root vegetables. So you can store potatoes in the pantry. You don't put potatoes immediately into the refrigerator. So storing them is really important. It's going to keep it longer the better you store it. So if you have garlic or onions, and I use garlic and onion everything, if you put them in a harsh light, so if they're left in a really bright light, they will actually start to sprout faster. All right. So, and then if you put them in the refrigerator too soon, sometimes they can get mushy. So they like a nice cool area, not too much light, but also not immediately in the refrigerator. And when speaking of your refrigerator, storing it, make sure that your refrigerator is set to a good temperature. You want it between 35 and 38 degrees Fahrenheit. All right. So if you look at your fridge, if it has temperatures on it, make sure you check that because that's going to help store a lot of the items in there well. A lot of people have the shelves that you can pick fruits or vegetables on this shelf, or pick fruits and vegetables on this one, and like you can pull them out the drawers. I said shelves, I meant drawers. And so set your drawers if you have that option. If not, remember that you want to keep all the fruit one place and all the vegetables one place, because vegetables actually want high humidity, and then fruit wants low humidity. Okay, so sometimes when you put a fruit and a vegetable together, one can help ripen the other faster, especially if it's in the conditions such as like high humidity for fruit that's stored with a vegetable. All right. So all of this is to say, to reduce food waste, you want to make sure you're storing things properly so that you can prolong their shelf life. All right. Now, just because we've prolonged shelf life doesn't mean that we can save everything. Sometimes we get busy, we forgot we bought something, it got pushed to the back. So when you have something, use it and you see it before it goes bad. We say use it, don't lose it. All right. There's so many different things you can do to it, even if it wasn't originally in your plan. So a lot of vegetables, if you see they're going bad, cut them and roast them. All right. All you have to do is have a sheet pan, throw them on there, toss a little olive oil on them, a little salt and pepper if that's what you like. Bake at 400 degrees, and it can help save a lot of your vegetables from wasting. All right. It adds this caramelization to it. It can make it really, really yummy. All right. So use it, don't lose it. You can also pickle things, and pickling is not as hard as it sounds. So you can Google pickling if you like. And also remember, you can cut things and freeze them. I highly recommend that if you have a lot of vegetables, like let's say you have a whole zucchini and it's going bad, I recommend that you cut it before you freeze it if you feel that way, so that you can store it in a way to use bits and pieces at a time. As a person who makes food for just a small amount of people, that's always really helpful, because if I take the whole thing out, but I only want to use half of it in a recipe rather than the whole thing, but it's all frozen together, then it becomes harder to use. So think about that when you're thinking about freezing things. If you have extra, packaged meat, you may want to freeze it in separate bags so that you can just use it as you go. So you want to pickle, roast, or freeze. This is going to help you save money and reduce waste. All right. So when we're thinking about wasting products and reducing waste, we also need to talk about food labeling. We get a lot of questions, is this still good? So it's important to note that there are no FDA guidelines on food labels except for infant formula. So sell by, best before, and used by are all things that are put on products to say, this is the amount of time that we can guarantee freshness. So if you sell it by this date, use it by this date, or it's best before this date, it does not immediately mean that after that date, it is spoiled and bad. It just means that the company and the manufacturer cannot guarantee freshness after that date. So if it is bad, they're saying, well, we told you, you needed to use it by this date. But if it's not, you can still use it. So if you're like me and you see the milk date, I used to do this with milk a lot. You have the smell test after that. It's like, oh, it's past the date, but it's like 2 days. Let me smell it first. So that is what you're doing. You're looking at the date to get a gauge, but it doesn't immediately mean you can't use the product. So remember that, and you do it at your own risk. But if you are a person who wants to guarantee that that the food is safe for you and that the food is at its optimal or at its best, then you can always get rid of it after these dates, but it does not immediately mean that it is bad for you. A good rule of thumb is once you open something, use it within 7 days. That's a good rule of thumb, but again, this can vary. And use features like there's an app, like a USDA Feed Keeper app. Use these features to see like what's new in labels and what's going on and is this bad. So you could do a little bit of research on that, but just remember that these are things that just say this is best if used by. So that is reducing food waste. Now that was a lot of information, so I hope you had your pen and paper, but I will send this to you guys after as well. All right. So when we talk about meal planning on a budget, you know what I'm going to say. You have to shop the sales and the coupons. And this includes signing up for rewards programs. So we talk about this every time because we know that purchasing seasonal produce, especially, is less expensive than if you buy that same fruit or vegetable and it's off season. So that's something that's simple. It's going to be on sale. It's going to be in demand. It's going to be tastier. And usually it's going to be a lot cheaper. So produce is much more expensive in its off season because if you think about it, they have to get it to you from further away because it isn't in season there. So they have to get it from a country or a place or another state where it is in season. And then they have to keep it fresh to get it to you. So buying seasonal produce supports like local business, like local farms, but it also supports your wallet because you get to get it on sale. So Giant flexible rewards cards, have a rewards card everywhere you go. If there's a place that you shop at regularly, like a Giant, get a rewards card. All right. So you get 2 times the points on any Guiding Stars products at Giant. And I think we've gone over that, but I do have Guiding Stars later in this presentation. And those are products that are good for you, better for you, or best for you. So you actually get double the rewards points for buying something that's healthier for you. So when we talk about eating healthy on a budget, buy things that are on sale, buy things that are good for you, and then also buy things that are Guiding Stars rated, and you're getting a lot of sale or you're getting a lot of a deal, right? You can do your sales flyers, you can scan it. So these are all things that when you're in store, like you can scan, see how much the item is. The sales flyer comes to your home if you're a rewards member, but you can also get it at the front of the store. So these things that are on sale, there are so many great deals going on. So don't skip out on deals because you don't feel like looking through. We have it electronically on the app now. So if you prefer the app, you can do it that way, or you can still do the paper version of the sales flyer. But great deals. Sometimes they're short, like this one that says 3 days only in this graphic here. But go ahead and get those things on sale. All right. Focus on store brands when you're somewhere, generic brands, people call it. A lot of the time when you compare it, they even say what it's comparable to. These store brands give you great quality for a lower price. So shopping on a budget, go for store brands and generic. Go where you can. And then look for the unit price. And we talked about this last time. So look high and look for high, low. So you get a better value if you look at the unit price because you can see how much something is per unit. So a lot of times, especially when you're buying for a bigger group, look for that value. And when you're shopping on a budget, avoid those impulse areas. So a lot of times it's to the center aisles as well as right where we're on our way out, which we talked about last time as well. So avoid those areas because this is how you're going to save in the store. That's where you're going to spend money that you didn't plan to spend. You took all that time to plan everything out, but also things that you don't necessarily need. And the other thing I want to iterate is that flexible rewards point, you don't have to just get those points on groceries. So you can also get that in gas. So if you want that for like, if you prefer like, hey, I'm going to pay this for my groceries, but you want to use those points toward a reduction in gas, you can also use it there. So always have rewards, get your guiding star or get your giant flexible rewards if you don't already have it. This is going to save you money on healthy food items as well as food overall, groceries, and gas if you'd like. We talked about this a little bit last time as well. So when you're thinking about staying healthy on a budget, you do have to take into account if you can't get to the grocery store, there are other services that may cost. So make sure that you pay attention to those costs, but you still want to make sure that you're getting that healthy food delivered to you if for some reason you need it. And there are deals online, exclusive deals online, as ways to save. So sometimes it can be like a free pickup. You can order it online. There's no minimum when you're talking about picking up. But if you allow them to deliver it to you in a larger time frame, it can be less money. So anytime you're doing something, any services that you're using, be sure to look for those deals and those sales when they're online, whether they're in store. It's really important to shop for deals and shop for coupons and discounts, okay? So as I said, we would go over the stars. Our fourth tip for meal planning on a budget is to get to know the stars. So we want healthy meals. And the easiest thing is when we're in the grocery store, sometimes it can be overwhelming, especially in the center aisles, to know what's good for us. Something will claim to be keto or high in protein or different things like that. And it can be really hard to keep it straight. So at Giant, we do the guiding star so that you can easily look at a product. If you see it has a star, if it has 2 stars or 3 stars, you already know it's good for you. It's better for you or it's best for you. All right, nutritionally. And this shows you what it has more of and what it also has less of. So meal planning on a budget, shop nutritious, we call it nutrient density. We want to shop for foods and we want to spend our money on foods that have a lot of nutrients within that one package. So my example is always when I'm thinking about rice, rice is something that is relatively cheap and you can buy different types. So if I'm going to spend money on rice and I'm in a tight budget, I have brown rice options and I have white rice options. Well, I know that I'm going to get more nutrient density from brown rice than I am from white rice because it has the fiber in it because of the brown nature. So it's not refined. So they haven't taken out that grain or that germ that's really important. So when you're going to buy items and you don't need 2 bags of rice, then get the one that has the most nutrients in it. And Guiding Stars can really help you with that and shop easily in store without having to turn them around and compare them yourselves. So we're looking for things when we're looking for healthy. We want vitamins, we want minerals, we want fiber, we want whole grains when we see it, and we want more omega-3s. That's what a lot of Americans are not getting enough of. And we want less saturated fat, less trans fat, less sodium, less added sugar, and less artificial coloring. All right. So use the stars when shopping. If you have specific conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, or other nutrition related conditions, you want to make sure that you're looking at those that are specifically for you. For example, if you have high cholesterol, you want to look for things that are lower in saturated fat. If you are a diabetic or you have diabetes, you want to make sure that you're looking for things that are lower in carbs or things that don't have a lot of added sugars there. So use these to look for the specific things that you need as well. All right, our fifth tip is count all forms of produce. So when we think about shopping on a budget, the first thing we say is fresh is too expensive. So this can be fresh meats, this could be fresh produce. Fresh is more expensive. It's more expensive to buy everything fresh, and I can't afford it. All right. So because the dietary guidelines, we want your half your plate to be produce with meals, that means that we don't expect you to go in and everything on half of your plate be fresh produce because all forms count. Remember, on a budget, all forms count. Okay. So when we're talking about fresh, we want to focus on those seasonal items that we talked about. We want to choose those with long shelf life. So when I'm on a budget, I go for my bananas and my apples because apples and bananas last longer and I don't need anything fancy that I have to eat within a week just in case. So go for those things that you know have longer shelf lives depending on how tight your budget is. You can buy bagged produce. So sometimes, especially apples, like in this example, when you buy them in the bag, they're cheaper per unit. So you can do that instead of buying them individually. It can save you a lot of money there. And they like put them all in there together. You can buy it pre-packaged rather than individually wrapped. Sometimes that has a better deal per unit price, depending on who it came from. Remember conventional versus organic. We talked about this last time. Organic can cost you more. So if you want organic, again, that is a personal choice. But yes, organic is more expensive in most places because of what it takes to produce that and keep it fresh without some of the other things that other products use. So if you would like organic, you can, but organic will run you a little bit more money. So account for it in your budget. But nutritionally, conventional and organic are the same nutritionally. Prep work equals money savings. So this is just us saying that remember that when you are thinking about things that are pre-prepared, maybe that are pre-sliced, pre-cut, remember that sometimes it can save you time and sometimes it can save you money depending on it in the store, but look for that. Don't count out the things that are already prepared for you. They may be on a special. So if you know you got to grill that night, you can buy the vegetables that are already ready for you to like put on the skewer and grill. And sometimes that can save you time and money. So make sure that you're looking for those deals and you're looking in that section. And always remember that you can save with canned and frozen. All right. So when I said all forms count, canned and frozen are both good for you. All right. Everyone knows that they're good for you. And if you didn't know, you know that now. I love canned vegetables because I don't go through my vegetables as fast as I should. So I love them. So here are some examples of some frozen and canned items that we highly recommend. And we call them nutritionist picks or healthy living pick. But the thing you want to remember here is that the canned items you want low sodium when you are purchasing vegetables, and you want in own water or in juice when we purchase fruit. So we went over this in our food store tour, but I'm iterating it because when you're doing meal planning on a budget, remember these are going to have longer shelf lives. You're going to be able to pay less for them up front. And so this is where you want to get your nutritional value from when you're doing produce. Because you can't afford fresh vegetables this week or this month or in this time, whatever it is, it does not mean you don't need to have vegetables or produce. You can get them in frozen, you can get them in canned. So just look for low sodium, no salt added. Look for, in juice, in 100% juice or in water when you're doing the canned. And look for those vegetables that are frozen, sometimes without the sauces. Sometimes they can be in a heavy cream or cheese sauce. And so look for the ones that are just kind of frozen there and you can spruce them up yourselves. All right. So canned and frozen count. So we count all forms of produce. So if you're on a tight budget, go to canned and frozen for produce first after you look for what's in season, but don't count them out. All right. So this is just a quick aside to sometimes people want to buy vegetables, but they don't know how to prepare vegetables other than the only ways that they already know. All right. I hear vegetables are bland. So when you're thinking about vegetables, there's so many ways to spice them up. So you can prepare frozen, canned, or fresh in so many different ways. And we encourage the use of herbs and spices to give it that different flavor. So you can use this salt-free perfect pinch. You see that it says salt-free on it. You can use Italian seasoning. When in doubt, I use Italian seasoning on everything. You can also use some packets. There are a lot of like low sodium packets that you can use. If you purchase some of those, they make it really easy to just season those canned vegetables, those frozen vegetables, just so you can have something to do with them. So don't count veggies out just because you may think they're a little bland or they come a certain way. So think about ways to spice it up. So go to the spice aisle, look for things other than salt and pepper. But healthy eating on a budget, it's going to be about you learning how to use these things and eat these things and enjoy these things. All right, our sixth tip is to focus on shelf stable foods. So this goes back to canned items, which are shelf stable because we buy them off the shelf, but also that knowing that you can find foods that are good for you in the center aisles. So we know that fresh produce is better for us according to how people say. Like, if you're eating healthy, you're buying these fresh salads all the time. So we hear people say that, but there's something good for you in every single aisle. Because again, what are we looking for? Nutrient density, cost effectiveness. And a lot of times in the center aisles, you can get things that are more versatile. And these things last in the pantry or on the shelf for so much longer. So budgeting is about strategy, right? And so we are definitely going to think about some of those items, such as oatmeal. You can use old-fashioned oats as oatmeal, but you can also use them as a coating for your chicken when you're cooking. You can use them in a smoothie. There are so many different ways that you can use old-fashioned oats, and it gives you great fiber source there. You can use chicken broth. You can use pastas. Pastas are cheap, and you can buy a lot of different meals with them. We just want to go for whole grain pasta. Beans, especially bagged beans, are a really good pantry item to have. You have to boil them a little longer than the canned beans, of course, but you can keep those in the pantry for so long and always have them as a backup fiber and protein source. Canned meat, such as tuna, salmon, different things. We talked about that at a previous session, that we can use all of these things, especially when on a budget. And we're just going to look for the no salt, the low sodium, and even things like nut butters. If you're a peanut butter fan, it's got a lot of healthy fats in it. It's got some sugar in it too, so we have to be careful, but a great source of protein. And so think about how many times we get on a tight budget and we're like, oh, I'm just going to have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Well, peanut butter is actually very nutrient dense. So that is not a bad, that's not a bad habit. We just have to be careful maybe with that sugar and the jelly. We just want to maybe pick a good one. But that is one of the reasons why it is a great choice for kids and a great choice for a budget-friendly option for a snack and or for a meal, because we're looking for nutrient density. So you can do sunflower butter, you can do peanut butter, you can do so many different kinds of nut butters. But again, shelf stable, great for you. All right. So our seventh and our final tip is going to be to try something new. And that is my thing. So if you heard it, I love when we try something new. Meals on a budget can make us feel like we can only eat the same things because the same things we know are cheap, the same things we know taste good. And so meal planning on a budget is actually an excellent time to try something new. All right. So you want things that are friendly to the budget, but also to the taste buds, but maybe can spice it up a little bit so you don't feel like you're eating on a budget or feel like you're limited to things that you know are quote unquote cheap. So think about something like eggs. Now, eggs are expensive right now. We know this. But if you buy eggs, you don't have to just eat them in the traditional ways that you normally eat them. Think about an egg frittata, or think about making some huevos rancheros. If you like love that, you can make tacos. You can even make an egg salad. So if you're a person that buys eggs and you still have like 3 left and you're like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do with this? I don't want these to go bad. They cost way too much right now for you to let them go bad. So think about different ways to use your eggs. So you can go to savory.com or giantfood.com/savory. And there are so many recipes that you can use eggs for. So don't let your eggs go bad. They stay in the refrigerator for a long time. And some people actually store them at room temperature. But make sure that you're using these to try something new. Don't let them go, or just to spice it up. That frittata, that veggie frittata is amazing in the morning. Pastas. Sometimes we feel like we can only use pastas in like a spaghetti or in an Alfredo, but you can make a soup. You can make a quick soup. Soups feed large amounts of people. A good way to put a lot of nutrients in there, as well as a lot of leftover things that we have. You can make a creamy pasta, and of course, just add your meat right in there, like salmon, like this one with salmon and peas, or even add just a lot of vegetables. Pastas are great sometimes when I don't know how to use my vegetables. I'll just make a pasta and I'll just chop up any vegetable I can think of, mix it together, put some spices in there, and then figure out a sauce later. So it's a great way to add veggies to keep that pasta veggie combo, as well as you can do like your whole grain penne with tuna in there. So this one can be served cold or hot. So pastas you can do cold and hot. So great way to try something new. Brown rice, you don't have to just eat brown rice plain. You can make a bowl, you can make a casserole. I love bowls, so of course you can just look up different recipes, but people say that brown rice tastes worse than white rice. I feel like it tastes amazing, but remember, it's what you do with it. So buy some brown rice and just figure out ways to spruce it up and add those spices in there. And so make a bowl, make a casserole, try it out. And then even an example of something like frozen broccoli. So this can feel harder, but you can make wraps with it. You can put a broccoli in a wrap, especially broccoli and chicken go together amazing. You can roast broccoli with your meat. So this is like a sheet pan pork chop and broccoli. So that's great. And also like a broccoli and cheese stuffed potato. So these are great ideas. So the final tip is to try something new, and it can be budget friendly. Everything we talked about are things you can buy on a budget. All right. So I'm wrapping this up. Thank you guys so much for being here. I just want to leave this on the screen for you for right now. And if you have any questions, shoot them in the chat. But these are our tips for maximizing your budget, meal planning on a budget, plan your meals and snacks, plan to reduce your food waste, shop the sales, get to know the stars when you're shopping, because those are going to help you stay healthier. Count all forms of produce, canned and frozen and fresh. Focus on those shelf stable items and that nutrient density from those center aisles that we talked about. And also take this time to try something new. Get those budget friendly meal inspirations.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. I guess we'll just moderate the chat a little bit and just see if any questions come in. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to send those in. Give it a few minutes. See anything just yet? Right. Yeah, I don't see any questions just yet, but anyone can still feel free to send a question in there, and we'll go ahead and give a few announcements. But thank you so much for that presentation. That was amazing. I'm definitely taking a lot of those tips with me. So we will go ahead and give the announcements. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. Before we leave, I just have 3 announcements. We want your feedback, so if you complete the survey in 24 hours to be entered into a drawing for a Health and Wellness gift bag. And please join us Thursday, January 26th for our next nutrition workshop, Healthy Lifestyle Changes and Staying Motivated from 6 to 7 p.m. And there's also an in-person wellness walk. Those are the Saturdays of January 21st and 28th from 10 to 11 a.m. at Fairwood Community Park. And you can register through PG Parks Direct to sign up for that. Looks like we got a comment that came in. Yes, great information.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us. We'll see you next week.
All right. Bye, guys.
Thank you for joining us for this virtual New Year, New You Nutrition Workshop Series. For more videos to help you make healthier choices, visit the Department of Parks and Recreation's online resource center at pgparks.com or the Health and Wellness Virtual Library at wellness.pgparks.com. Until next time, be healthy, be well.